I've known JT for a long time, and in this conversation we talked about how growth changes the rules, often before you realize it has. We get into leadership, legacy, profit, and the uncomfortable shift from being the doer to becoming the CEO your business actually needs. This isn't theory. It's real experience, real mistakes, and real perspective from someone who's lived it. And welcome to another episode of Constructive Interference. My guest today is JT Wiederholt. JT and I, we go back a few years. Actually, he has a company. He's the CEO of Balanced Approach. So I think we were using you before that existed. We just had JT Wiederholt as our coach. So JT, welcome to the podcast. I'm excited to dive in on some topics I'm dying to ask you about. Especially the book that you just released, and I want to learn a little bit more about it. But Constructive Interference, just to give you some context, is me, for the most part, talking to my entrepreneurial visionary friends and talking about just talking shop, really. And constructive interference is a physics term that says when two vibrations or two frequencies overlap, they amplify. And you've been in those rooms where it's just electric and it's a lot of energies in the room when there's people have a common mindset, and they're, it's one of those things where I that's kind of my drug of choice. So I like being energized by people who are thought leaders and think the way I think. And it's really cool when we can see and hear each other and amplify that. So let's dive in. My first question to you, just a little background as far as the business. And I always talk about differentiators, but I want you to tell me about your business, but in the context of how would I refer you? What would be a great referral if they were right in front of me? How would I know who they are, and how would I get them to you?
Well, first off, Rufus, I was talking to a friend this weekend about the upcoming podcast, and we both know you. And we said, yeah, without a doubt, Rufus is definitely a great podcast guy. So just know that we think you're in your realm, and best wishes to you, and that this continues to grow and to take hold. So in terms of Balanced Approach, the firm's been around for 10 years. We work with entrepreneurs that have achieved great success. So I don't know that we're great with the initial startup of like a side hustle, what have you. I think we're more well suited for those entrepreneurs that have some scale. They've got employees or partners, and they're looking for, well, how do we continue to unlock and go to the next place, if you will. So, being referred to entrepreneurs that have businesses that have been around a little while and they've maybe gotten stuck, those are the businesses that we really thrive in helping unlock what is the next place that they need to go.
So it's kind of a what got you here won't get you there.
Well said in a nutshell. Absolutely right.
Yeah, no, and that's usually the formula where people just kind of revert to what they know and said, well, I've been doing this for the last 10, 15, 20 years. I guess if I just do more of it, I should get more. And that's not always the case, because you start to add new complexities to your business. And I think you're going to dive into this, but what I recognize is that no one really in their profession ever went to school or got training on how to be a CEO. And there's a certain skill set and leadership and certain things that they have to learn, because they're not responsible for their own hours anymore. They're responsible for other leaders in their company. So I think that's probably what we're going to dive into a little bit more. So in regards to, well, thank you for the compliment, by the way, that when I did start the podcast, the guy that talked me into it, I said, look, I just don't need this at this time in my career to just do something new. I'm doing okay. I have my other passions. And he just kept on me. And I said, I tell you what, if I can just show up and be me, and I don't have to prepare, I don't have to study, I don't have to do research, and I can just get in and just talk to my friends, then that sounds like fun to me. And if it stops becoming fun, I'm not going to do it. He says, okay. So now it's just kind of been like, okay, this is a really good way to reconnect with people. And especially authors, because then I get signed copies of their books. Hint, hint.
On it, for sure.
So now I know you for working in the financial services industry. Do you branch outside of the financial services industry to other types of industries?
Yeah, we do. Now, financial services is kind of where we started, and we have a fairly deep penetration in that world. But we
Hmm.
do work outside of that. As an example, one of my favorite newer clients that we work with, they have a 114-year-old sawmill, and it's the fourth generation of the family that's working through this. And you
Okay.
may have heard this adage of first generation builds the business, second generation enjoys, and third generation destroys. And
What does
I've
the fourth
found
generation do?
that
Rebuild.
yeah,
Yes.
great question. So we're transitioning between third and fourth right now, and that's the biggest concern that the owner has is, well, is the legacy, me as the third passing to the fourth, is this thing going to blow up, between me and my son? And so we're working through some really challenging issues. I mean, he's been working within this business for 40 years, and his son is in his 40s, and there's a lot that goes on in a person's mind and psyche with a business that old. And to your point, Rufus, what gets you here won't get you there. That's absolutely what's happening in this business. We are looking at significant retooling, investment, and new infrastructure that they'd never considered before. So it's really pretty exciting to be a part of that, and to be able to be part of the legacy of this family transitioning for the next generation.
Okay. Okay. So, and I find that's interesting with especially the especially other guests that I've talked to that had the next generation come in, and it's but even if it's not even the next generation, it's we our businesses are kind of an extension of our family sometimes, especially small companies where you get to have that
Mm.
intimate relationships and knowledge of their lives outside of work. But we spend so much time. So just like our children, we tend to want to protect them. We want to give them everything that we didn't have. And part of what made the company successful was the risk that we were taking when we started the company. And the next generation didn't necessarily have to take that risk. Their backs were never against the wall to where they had to claw their way out because, and partially because we've sheltered them from that risk. And the reason why, as owners, we protect our employees from unnecessary risk because it usually means it costs us money when they make mistakes. But if they're not failing, they're not learning. So that's been the challenge that I'm having with my next generation. I think they have a lot of grit and they have a lot of ambition, but I never really allowed them to fall down enough to where they had to figure it out for themselves. I was always there to rescue them to some degree. So that's the part where I need probably help is stepping away more so they can go figure it out and be more cognitive thought processes of solving problems.
Rufus, I think you're hitting on something that's pretty important here. I've found that if your business is truly going to be saleable, if there's really going to be an enterprise that can pass from one generation to another, one buyer from one seller to another buyer, it requires that you have a next generation that actually can, make the business last beyond you. I think so many entrepreneurs, what they've done is they've built the infrastructure for a very high paying job, but not made the transition to how do I make this business viable beyond me and my own personal skill set and cult of personality and the grit and drive that it took to build it. So in the book, I have a chapter specifically on people that talks about what you're describing, Rufus. Of we need to, as entrepreneurs, as owners of these businesses, create an environment where they can fail, where they can make mistakes that are not catastrophic to the business, because people learn much more from the ability to experience or fail within a protected environment, so that they can, kind of know that the stove is hot, and that hurts, if you will. So, Rufus, I think you're hitting on something that's more and more important than ever for entrepreneurs in the Indian throughout the world right now.
That's go around the office over the years. They've been dubbed as Rufusisms. It's these little quips, these little quotes, and a lot of them, some of them, I don't know. I heard from somewhere else, and I usually can't, give the proper accreditations to the actual original person that said it. But one of them I do like to say, and they hear me say it at least once a week, I think, is we either do things and we win, or we do things and we learn. And it helps hopefully change the mindset that it's like, hey, it's okay to fail, but don't fail and take your ball and go home. Fail and lean into it and understand what you could have controlled to either influence or control a different outcome. And if you didn't learn anything from it, then that's where we truly have a failure. So do things and we win, we do things and we learn. So anyway, let's transition back to the book. So why did you want to write a book? Where did this come from?
Oh man, well, I got asked this question when we launched the book, and there were a few reasons. First off, my mother, she actually passed away almost 20 years ago, so she was my age that I am now when she passed, and she was known by her friends and family as a budding author for sure, but she never got to go down that path, unfortunately. So I'd say this is an homage to my mother first off. Secondly, I've found that I am much more articulate in writing than I am in speaking. And there are things that I've shared with clients along the way where I think I've done an okay job, in communicating in a call like this, but having it written in, black and white and being able to spend the time to really vet those ideas out, it's made me better in terms of my ability to communicate to clients as well as to people in general about what it takes to be an entrepreneur and what are the challenges that they face. So for me, it's been a passion project. I don't know that this is my only book. I think there might be more. My wife and I actually want to write a book together too. So this is something that I think will be a lifelong journey for me.
That's great. So the better entrepreneur is for. I mean, when I pick up a book, I want to have some type, and I only read nonfiction. So
Same.
I want to have somewhat of a transformative experience that having ended that book, I now have things that I can say, okay, I was this person before I read the book. Now after the book, I am now this person, or not the person, but I had certain skill sets, certain nuggets of wisdom, or certain actionable items. What kind of transformational experience do you think I could have in reading your book?
So the book actually goes through 5 principles that, in my observation in the last almost 30 years, working as or with an entrepreneur, those that seem to have the greatest success long term. And I think success can be defined differently for different people. I've found that there are kind of 3 stages that someone is working on in their business. They're either working on building a better team within the business, meaning that they've got to get that next generation up and running, or they have members of the team that are highly skilled, but they need to delve into the culture, what have you. The next stage that they get into is building an actual better business, meaning that there needs to be financial metrics or key performance indicators. They need to have, better handle on their P&L, and why are we doing what we're doing? Are we working with the ideal client or not? Things of that nature. And then the last stage that I find people in a business is the owner or owners of the business are seeking greater freedom from the business. A lot of entrepreneurs, they've created their own prison, if you will. The business has become so successful, but it's reliant so much so on that individual that they find it difficult to free themselves from the business. And that can be just as challenging as when you started the business, ironically.
Mm-hmm.
So when people are working through those 3 different stages, I found if they can master the 5 principles in the book, they usually have a greater chance of success and probability in doing so. So it's just observations I've made and key tips and ideas. You'd asked, for transformation, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have a good friend who is a public speaker, and he talks about the fact that we are now transitioning from the experience economy to the transformation economy. where customers, clients, prospects, when they're seeking a product or a brand, they're looking for that brand to actually help them with a personal transformation more than just having an experience with them. And I think that as we think about transformation, that's what the book is intended to do and be. It's got a lot of actionable steps that you can literally take while you're reading the book and say, okay, let me try this on for size. Let me try this model. Let me do this assessment. So I'm like you, Rufus, nonfiction all the way. I'm looking for a book that's going to help me to get to the next place I want to be. Of course, I'd like to enjoy the read, but if I can take action and transform myself just a little bit more, that makes all the difference.
Yeah, I mean, I want to stop, pause, make a note, go back and listen to it again. Just those are the books that I remember, the ones that I'm like, I'm not necessarily reading it from cover to cover, but I'm reading different segments and going back to it. Actually, one of my favorite books is the book from Keith Cunningham, is the Road Less Stupid. Now, it doesn't. Have you read that one? And
I've heard it. It's on my list. I haven't read it yet. So
really
yes,
good.
it's a chuckle for me, the title.
But you don't have to necessarily read it from this chapter leads into this one. They have a little bit of that, but you can go to different segments based on where you are and what the challenges are. And what I like about Keith Cunningham is, unlike other, lack of a better term, motivational books or self-help books, if you will, he's not pumping you up. He's not a sycophant like a lot of the other ones. Like, oh, just have really positive thinking and build a dream board, and he's like down to business and it's like, don't do stupid stuff. He talks about the stupid tax. It's like, if you're going to do this, then be prepared to pay the stupid tax. And it's just real talk. Sometimes you need that balance, if you will, from some of these other fluff books, which are still good and have their place, but you need someone to kind of bring it in back into reality for you, in my opinion. But I think that's going to be what I hope to get out of it. Now, very important question is it on Audible, or is it going to be on Audible?
Yeah, great question. So I'm in the studio. I've got my last few sessions this week, so it will be on Audible by the end of the year, because I'm like you. Audible is a requirement in my world to get through a book.
Uh, yeah, well, a little bit of adult ADD and dyslexia, books will tend to put me to sleep. But I tell authors, I says, look, it will increase the likelihood of me reading your book by 100% if you put it on Audible. And some of them don't. So I said, so a lot of them I know, and I'll say, can you at least send me kind of a PDF transcript of it, and then I can put it into an AI reader and so on. So that I can usually, I have my little hacks there, and I think they have new programs that can take any book and just turn it into Audible for you. So good move there. Good move. And that's the whole idea is I talk about reading a book. I don't read books. I can probably count on two hands how many books I've read in my lifetime, but countless number of books that I've actually listened to. So that's just how I take in information. So, but that's great. So I'm looking forward to that. But then you created the Better CEO, which is a class, which is basically a reflection of the book that kind of goes into, okay, here's some workshops, here's some actionables. And are you doing that in a group setting or one-on-one or both?
Yeah, great question. So it's intended to be small group, because I found that there's nothing more valuable than being a participant where you've got peers that you can bounce ideas off, or they can say, hey, I went through this. This is what my experience was, or avoid this trap. So we do groups of 10 or less. We meet every couple of weeks and we go through the principles in the book, and we've got actionable items one week, and we've got kind of talk some shop in the next week. So it seems to be a really good balance and cadence.
Oh, good. And how long does that program last?
It's an entire year. It's a master class, similar to what you find when you go to social media or other places. I think the difference here is it's not just video grabs and try this. It's literal, live instruction, and you're participating with your peers in a group setting. So it seems to be a really healthy balance.
Now, when it comes to classes, coaching, consulting, there's no shortage of people out there that are doing this. And especially me being in the EOS community, there's lots of them. And it's just a matter of what is the right coach at the right time of what I'm trying to get. So coaches just like financial planners really need to differentiate themselves. How do we separate ourselves from all the other financial advisors in the world and not be put in the box of the mutual fund salesman or the insurance salesman or so on? And that's why I try to hold myself as more of a financial planner than a financial advisor. But in the coaching, I would imagine it's very much the same thing. It's, you don't really get this, hey, I'm a business coach. And someone says, well, great, what kind of business coach? People don't usually go much further to another layer. So how are you differentiating yourself that says, okay, you have many options, but this is the right course for you? I mean, like, based on all the other things that are available.
Yeah, great question, Rufus. And I got to tell you, there are incredible coaching and consulting resources out there. There are great firms. There are a lot of people with incredible experience. I do get concerned that our world is very superficial, to your point, and there are a lot of people that refer to themselves as a life coach or something along those lines. And usually, a great life coach has actually lived life. So, nothing disparaging to people out there that are just starting their business, et cetera. But if you're really going to differentiate yourself, you have to be able to demonstrate a pretty valuable, in-depth way of approaching the coaching that you're doing. Mm-hmm. The way that I describe our differentiator is, for me, as I've interviewed and hired coaches along the way to help me throughout my career, I found that there typically are two camps. There's either someone that's really great at the high level, kind of motivational, maybe strategic in the way that they think, but you're kind of left to your own devices for implementation. And then the other side of that coin is there are really great support and resources related to true tactical implementation. The way that I describe our group is we are stractical, meaning that we try to bridge the gap between the strategy and the tactics. Mm-hmm. Peter Drucker said it best. He said that execution eats strategy for breakfast. And ironically, as I did my research, I found he said, I've never said that before, but everybody says that I said that. And there's nobody else to claim the phrase. So I keep, leveraging Peter Drucker. Yeah. But yeah, stractical is a way that we describe our differentiator. We really take the long-term view, the high level, and help you to get boots on the ground, because we found that a lot of entrepreneurs, they're just stuck. And they're stuck in either, why did I get into this? I can't find my motivation anymore. Or I can't get to the next level because I've never been there and I don't know what I have to do differently. And if we can help them to unlock that as they grow their business, that brings a lot of satisfaction.
And I figured that was probably along the lines of what your differentiator would be, because, and I think I'm going to probably mess this up, but I think they say Wall Street is the only place where people that drive Rolls Royces take financial advice from people that take the subway. So think about it, right? So I think that's the superficial. That's an interesting way to put it, because there's a lot of coaches out there that says, hey, I'm going to go be a coach. I'm like, okay, based on what? Well, I was in a managerial job for a couple of years and I did it really, really well. So I wanted to start coaching it. I'm like, okay. And what you're saying is kind of my life hack, in my opinion, is talk about, I don't know who originally said it, so I'm just going to quote myself and say it because I always say it, is a wise person learn. I'm going to quote myself here for a second. How pretentious, right? A wise person learns from their mistakes. A wiser person learns from other people's mistakes. And I think that's the key, is that you've been in the trenches, you've done the work, you've actually been, you are the refined process. You are the evidence, the proof that this works because you actually did it. This isn't just theory. So you're taking those fundamentals and you're turning that into a coaching program that says, I can speak from experience. And I think that's what's missing, is the speaking from experience and that credibility. And that's really a big key there, is that credibility that you have. Because I know where you started and where you worked for. I mean, even before you worked for the financial planner, you were in a high level managerial job in the corporate world too. So, right. So when I first learned about who you were and who you worked with, I'm like, okay, if he's the engine behind this machine, then I really need to know who JT is. And yes, you didn't disappoint. So I can speak from experience to the audience that I've had many coaches throughout my career, and JT by far always had the most insight and practical, relational, applicable advice and guidance. So it was money well spent. So great return on investment on my part. So, but anyways,
Appreciate
cool.
it.
Yeah, you bet. So it brings me to an interesting point, though, is when we talk about scaling the business, you're helping people scale business. How are you scaling your own business? How are you going to take everything that I just said and pass that on to someone else that hasn't been in the same trenches that you are, to where you can eventually step away yourself in the business? Or is it even in the plan for you?
Yeah, great question. So I definitely have a 10-year plan. I've surrounded myself with I kind of refer to them as our Navy SEAL team. I'd rather have a group of highly concentrated talent. You pay for that, obviously, but people that I feel have the ability to replicate or enhance what it is that I bring to the table. As I think about that long-term vision, it's important that there's an African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go a long way, then you go together. And for me, that's the essence of what balance will and continues to be, is how do I surround myself with the people that can replicate, enhance what I do, and then that mentorship and transition between relationships has everything to do with trust. And for me, that's the next step for balance approach.
And how do you eventually exit your business into where, I mean, is there a plan to sell it to these other team members or to sell to a third party?
Yeah, great question. My hope is that the internal transition route is the one that we can take. Synthesizing the equity and having shares and ownership, that's all part of that process.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end of the day, if you want to kind of protect and really guard a culture, an internal sale is definitely the way to go.
Mm-hmm.
Not to say that an external sale can't be extremely fruitful and valuable, but having been through several M&A, headcount reductions in a corporate 200 company, there's a lot of challenges that go along with that. So my hope is that internally, and even my kids, if they want to participate over the next 10 years, that there's a path and there's a way for them. But that's the intention there.
Yeah. And as it relates to even the book, The Better Entrepreneur, so you described it as different phases. I've always kind of looked at it as the three stages of the visionary. And I look at it as the founder visionary is where we all get started. This is where it's just us. We're a technician. We do really well at it. We don't work 40-hour weeks. We go home when the work is done. And then we start to grow and we get an assistant, maybe an associate, and we start to get to this critical mass where we eventually get stuck. And that's where your class kind of comes in as being a better CEO, is basically saying, okay, now we get to the professional visionary stage. Okay, we have to go from technician to being a professional business person. And that's where you start learning about the hard skills of P&L and understanding that, hey, we're in business to make a profit. We want to grow the enterprise value. And then the third stage is we want to be able to step away, but not necessarily, we maybe want to hire a CEO at some point, but I call that the investor visionary, to where we can start looking at our business as, okay, now that we have this thing that's successful, and we may want to start looking at how we can invest in it and grow it and maybe buy into some verticals or whatever the case might be. But I think about even the transition for me coming up through the company I did. It was very much a sales organization, and you were recognized based on the top line revenue. And that's all we ever focused on was, did we produce more? Did we produce more? Or we at the leaderboard? Or we top the leaderboard? And I became obsessed and driven by that. And then the business just grew to a certain point. I'm like, what got me here won't necessarily get me there. And I start really looking at becoming a better CEO for my company, not just a clever name. I literally needed to become better, or I needed to either figure out how to become a better CEO or hire a better CEO, because first of all, I'm responsible not only for myself, but the livelihoods of a lot of people that I care about in this company. So how do I get better? How do I get better? So I started joining these different groups and like, oh, wow, there's so much I didn't know. But that was the thing, is that when I started paying attention to the bottom line, not the top line, my paradigm completely shifted. It was like, oh my gosh, I've been in this rat race. And if I could just do certain things to where my top line actually over the last couple of years has stayed relatively level, but my profitability has gone through the roof. And we basically were able to double down on the people we wanted to invest in the company, made the company smaller, more efficient. And it was just like, I could have been doing this all along, but that just wasn't the culture I was a part of. So now that I have the people in my company that I want to grow with, now I can start investing more into them and go into that third phase of being an investor visionary and say, okay, I can either take my money, go put it into stock or mutual funds in companies I don't know anything about, and I have to do all this analyst report and make sure it's public to where I can figure out if I want to invest in that, or I can take the same dollars and invest in my company, which I know pretty much everything about. I have a lot more control and influence, and I trust the people who are doing it. And that just is a no-brainer for me. Plus, the multipliers of that growth of putting the money in my business tend to be much greater than anything I'm going to get in the public markets on average.
Well said.
So I think that was that big aha for me. And I think that if I ever write another book, I have a couple of them coming out, which is a long-term process, but I really think about that as saying, for the visionary, understanding where are you in this cycle? Where do you want to be? And if you're in the founder phase, then go get that kind of coach. If you're in the professional phase, then go get that kind of coach. But if you're in the investor phase, that's a different type of coach altogether. But I say, I've told people, I said, it'll be a glorious day when I hire a CEO for my company, because I mean, I like it. I'm good at it, but it's still a job, and I have other passions I want to pursue. So, anyway.
Rufus, I love that. I tell clients all the time, growth for growth's sake is a fool's errand. And to your point, there's so many businesses out there that profitability is not even on the business plan for the year. It's all about, well, let's add another 15 or 20% growth and away we go. And that's the prison that people build, is that constant treadmill of growth for growth's sake. And it's a very frustrating place to be.
Yeah, I even a couple of years ago, well, about 4 years ago, actually, somebody turned me on to a book called Profit First, which is an interesting book. But I kind of took what I wanted, what served me, I take, and I discard the rest. But we figured out, okay, we're in business for profit. Well, there's many reasons why we're in business, but I mean, if we want to be a sustainable business and an ongoing concern, we need to be profitable. So we picked the number of profitability that we wanted, and every dollar that comes into the company, the first account that gets paid is the profit account. So we want that minimum profit, which turned out to be a very interesting early indicator, because if we look at our reserves, and if our reserves fall below a certain level, then we know that, okay, the next thing to go is profitability. So it's an early warning detector that says something's not right. Now, sometimes it might just, oh, this is an expensive month. We had some equipment, or we paid bonuses, but it just forces us to take a closer look. But my thought is, if I can't run a company at this minimum profit, then I'm doing something wrong. And it's all hands on deck. We got to figure this out. But that's just my disciplined approach to making sure that the company stays profitable. And you set it at a level that is the minimum. Now, obviously, we go for the maximum, but we've been pretty successful at that. But it's just no one ever trained me that as a first year advisor. They just wanted you to go out there and get the sales. That's by any means, friends and family, whatever. It just didn't matter to them where the sales came from and what risk you were putting out there. Sure, Rufus, go buy a practice. Go overpay for a practice. We don't care. As long as you keep bringing those high net worth clients and those new sales and those new revenues, those new assets. That was really what the company encouraged. And that's just not the right way to approach it, in my opinion.
Yeah, hard to argue that.
Yeah. So I talked about I want to be able to pursue other passions as I go to that investor phase of my professional career. what's your passion? What do you do when you're not working? Where do you spend your time?
We do a lot of travel.
Mhm.
So we've been to over 70 countries, and we're
Really?
avid explorers of this world that we're on. Obviously, my family, we have 5 kiddos. We have a vision for those children to be entrepreneurs as well, and the family invests in those businesses. So
Mhm.
there's plenty on the horizon here as the kids start to get old enough to really grasp these concepts and go to that next phase. So outside of work, I'm not a golfer, not a gamer, any of those types of things. I am fascinated by the world around me and the people on the planet. So try to spend my time there for sure.
Okay. Now, it's I just so I can get to know you a little better because I don't know this about you, and my audience, of course, can get to know you better. But I talk about core values, and there's an interesting approach that I take to figuring out what someone's core values are, and I start with JT. What is your pet peeve? And we all have something that just irritates us or just gets under our skin.
Hmm.
Something you hear, somebody might say, just something that you just don't stand for. What would that be?
Oh man. The first thing that came to me was anytime electronics or technology doesn't work for me, that gets pretty frustrating. But
Hmm.
for me, I guess a pet peeve is when I see an injustice, whether that's behavior, action, something that is done that strikes me as the wrong way, or strikes me the wrong way. That to me is a significant pet peeve. So I like to see justice served, if you will.
Right. The reason why I ask that is we things that trigger us tend to be a violation of our core values. So if that is something that's triggering, you just take the antithesis of that and then you look at that and say, well, obviously injustice, the antithesis would be justice or honesty or integrity. Am I hitting on a few of your core values by any chance?
Yeah. So my core values are self awareness, family, um, God and country, and health. So as I think through, what you just described, absolutely, those are things that are the antithesis, if you will,
Yeah.
of injustice.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's like I said, anger and frustrations is usually a secondary emotion. It's usually some need is not being met or some value is being violated. So it's an interesting way to approach it because it's kind of we can go through a values exercise and go through 50 different core values and say, okay, this like health is a great one. And it's like, well, sure. I mean, if you don't have health, you don't have anything. So why is that not my core value? It's still important to me, but it's not a core value. And now you said family, and I'm with you on that. But I would say more important than family is relationships for me, because not every family. Now my immediate family that they all get a pass, but my family, like brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, they don't just get a pass because they're family automatically. So it's about the relationships that's more important to me. And the families, this because some of the family we get to choose, some of the family we don't get to choose. So that's just always been. And then of course my pet peeve is really just people talking behind other people's backs that that are supposed to be your friends, or they're talking about your mutual friend, and it's like my that's a violation of my value, which is loyalty, and that's just something that I that's again that just triggers me is that I don't like having friends that aren't loyal. I'm kind of like, what's the point, you know? So that's makes me comfortable. That makes me secure is having loyal people uh, because it's also a vulnerability thing. Me giving loyalty to someone else is basically a trust of basically saying, hey, I'm giving you this. I expect this in return. This is the relationship that I choose to have. So as you release this book, as you do these courses, as you do the personal one-on-one training, what is the thing that drives you? What gives you the most joy in doing what you do?
So in the book, I talk about one of the core elements for successful entrepreneurs is curiosity, and I have a fascination or curiosity with people unlocking, identifying, or discovering something new. So to me, those are the moments that I really cherish and enjoy. I love that with our children. I love that with just people I have conversations with, and obviously in the coaching and consulting. So helping others discover more about themselves or the world around them, I think that gives me a lot of energy, and that's what drives. That's what creates the passion for me and the work that I do.
And how are you investing in your business? We talked about being an investor in your business, and obviously having a choice to say I can go buy some outside investment company stock, or I can invest in my own company. Are you currently investing in your own company right now, and how?
Yeah, we've done a lot of technology investments over the last couple of years. AI has been a big component of that. Doubling down on our CRM and platform for coaching. We've created a lot of online, tools, etc. So on our website, you can go and do. One of my favorite is we have a retirement readiness predictor, and it gives you a score that lets you know how well prepared you are in 6 different facets of your life. The Exit Planning Institute found that 75% of entrepreneurs are either dissatisfied or greatly dissatisfied a year after the sale of their business. And it rarely has anything to do with the money. It has everything to do with they weren't ready in the other areas of their life. Spent 20, 30, 40 years building something, and they have a big vacuum to fill. So that predictor indicator has been really valuable in the coaching world for me, because I talk to the entrepreneur, their spouse, and we get into some pretty heavy topics of things that they've not necessarily spent enough time talking through, or that they are kind of certain about, but not absolutely certain about. So that's one example of many things that we've built online that I think help supplement what we do. We're also making some investments on. Uh, we've explored some M&A on the coaching consulting side. We haven't pulled the trigger. We've gotten pretty close with a couple of them, but I do think that the acquisition of a consulting business is on the horizon for us as well.
So a lot of that client experience of being able to have that readiness level is what you're talking about. And I mean, if you think about it, I mean, we're important people at work. We've been doing this. We know everything there is to know. We're a person of authority. People ask us for advice. All of a sudden, we sell the company, and it's like nobody's taking us out for dinners. Nobody's asking us for advice. Nobody needs us anymore. So we've almost lost a bit of our purpose. So it does take a lot of head work to get into that space and figure out what's next. But when you're doing that, you're usually dealing with business people wanting to talk about business issues. You're almost inviting them to become vulnerable, which I would imagine is a pretty big challenge for someone. So there's trust that has to be established to where you can have people let their guard down long enough to be able to talk about those things.
Yeah, that's the thing that really I appreciate about the clients that we work with is there's this level of vulnerability. To your point, a lot of times the CEO, the entrepreneur role, it's very, very lonely. There are a few people that you can feel comfortable or confident in having a conversation, because a lot of times they're either your competitor or they just won't really truly understand the world that you're living in day out. So finding a coach that really can get beyond that layer and get into the depth there, that's a very freeing experience. It allows for you to bear a burden together rather than just carry it by yourself.
I think it's until you can let down those masks and those layers and those guards down, you're going to continue to try to become the entrepreneur that you think you are versus the entrepreneur that you actually are. And it's because you're trying to be like someone else, or the image that you have in your mind of how you're supposed to act and look and be and all these behaviors. But I think you're doing a great thing. I think I'm looking forward to the book. And how can people reach you? How can people connect with you?
So I'm on the socials, obviously. My email is jt@balanceapproach.com. The website is balanceapproach.com. So you can find us that way. The book is on Amazon. It'll be on Audible soon, obviously. You can get it on Kindle as well. So The Better Entrepreneur, hopefully you can pick up a copy and find some good things in it.
And we'll have some links on screen, and we'll put the links in the comments on where we can find all this. And of course, anybody that's watching this or listening to this can always contact us, and we're happy to put you in touch with JT. But JT, I want to respect your time. I appreciate you being on my podcast. It's good catching up with you, and I wish the best luck to you and all the success. And I look forward to hearing more about all these successes that you have in the future.
Likewise, my friend. I appreciate it. Really enjoyed it.
Take care.
Take care.
Thanks for tuning in to Constructive Interference. If you've enjoyed today's episode, be sure to subscribe, leave a review, and share it with a fellow visionary. Keep dreaming big, and remember, the only limits are the ones you set for yourself. Until next time, stay sharp.